Hi, guys. This is my crisis management plan for Caldwell Academy, which is a private Christian academy school in Greensboro, North Carolina. Um, K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. I actually went here from kindergarten to 4th grade, and so I have some history with the place. I've also worked here for a handful of summers, actually. And then speaking with the head of or the director of operations at Caldwell, who is also the head of the crisis management plan there, Joe Curlott. I noticed that they had um, plans and preparations for like floods, gas leaks, and fires, but they weren't very extensive. Um, and I felt like that there was a lot that they could include and update on, and really the whole format they had it in was um, just a bit hard to read, and so I figured I'd update it and write it out a bit clearer. Anyway, so it's kind of an updated, elongated version of what they already have with a few additions. Anyways, we'll get started. Table of contents, introduction, and so I'm just saying this plan will serve to guide Caldwell Academy's management, administration, faculty, staff, and students in the event of a flood, gas leak, or fire. I talk about its setup to ensure the most effectiveness in undergoing the crisis amelioration and to guide participating personnel through the procedures. The purpose of this plan is to reduce the risk of confusion and disorder, etc. And I note that if the plan isn't followed, the crisis runs risk of compounding itself, and deviation from this plan will increase the likelihood of exacerbating the crisis and jeopardizing the safety and well-being of those affected or potentially affected. Those introduction acknowledgments. Sam Cox, head of school, Joe Curlott, um, and some others, principles of the dialectic, rhetoric, and grammar. And I note here Joe Curlott, director of operations, is the head of the CMP operation. Um, and there's also others listed on page 9 who will be enacting the plan. And they're the crisis team. And so the rehearsal dates are quarterly. And in talking with Joe, he has a first responders group, which in this crisis management plan is the crisis team. They pretty much serve the same purpose. And he told me that they meet quarterly to just go over old procedures, and if there's any updated information, then they will go over that too. And there's no specific dates. It's usually set depending on just the schedule of the school and whatnot, but they meet quarterly. So the purposes, in the event of a flood, our goal is to keep everyone as safe as possible while working efficiently toward amelioration and afterwards future prevention. And Joe Curlott emphasized this. Caldwell Academy stresses the importance of transparency, always prompt communication, and the security of its administration, staff, faculties, and of course students. And so listed are some objectives: get students into a safe place under supervision, notify immediately the internal publics, which include parents. Um, Before proceeding any further, make sure kids are safe, staff, parents, families, they know what's going on. And then from there, they'll move to communicating with the stakeholders, neighboring organizations, and other external publics. Well, and the external publics. Not that these people are, they're functional, but so on to the next page. So the key publics are students who are functional in a way, and the internal public, the employees, obviously functional, administration, so the enabling, parents of students, stakeholders, board of directors, community members, the diffused, surrounding businesses and residences, also diffused, media, of course, is diffused. And the notifying publics um, will always be, this is from Joe, will always be Sam Cox, who's the head of the school. He will always be addressing all external publics and parents, but if he is unavailable, then Sam Cox will designate a spokesperson. And typically he does this if the crisis has to do with one of the schools, like the dialectic or rhetoric school. If it's any academic affair, Joe will not be notifying the publics. Sam will designate somebody, but if it, in this case, it's has nothing to do with administration or students per se, um, then Joe will be notifying the publics. And so this is the crisis team. Listed below are the first responders, which is how it's listed on um, Caldwell's pre-existing crisis management plan. Same thing, they're the crisis team. Um, and they will be found in these halls unless the crisis, say it's a fire or a gas leak, whatever, is occurring in one of these halls, then obviously they will probably have evacuated. They will have evacuated the place. So, anyways, this is the crisis team. You can reach them at these numbers. And noted, if anyone not listed here notices an imminent crisis or one underway, report immediately to the nearest or most convenient crisis team member. So, a key here is for people to not try to be the hero per se, or who aren't on the crisis team. But if anybody notices anything wrong, then the first move is to notify someone on the crisis team. That is crucial. List of emergency personnel and local officials. Greensboro Fire Station, which is conveniently across the street and down the road. Of course, 911. Joe Curlett and Sam Cox. Moses Cone Memorial Hospital, Piedmont Natural Gas for gas leaks, Duke Energy Company, Greensboro Water and Sewer, floods, Wesley Long Community Hospital. So just a few options for hospitals. And the key media will be WFMY News 2, which is kind of one of Greensboro's local news stations. Fox 8 News covers Greensboro. The Northwest Observer, which is based out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina, but they have a pretty wide-spanning audience. And Caldwell Academy has a Facebook page, and also Caldwell Academy's .org, their school page, and there's a homepage they have a news section, they have a blog section. So those are the key publics. And the spokespersons for related organizations. So Prolific Park is the immediate neighbor of Caldwell Academy. It's like an athletic complex. And the spokespersons there are Ricky Pearl, who's the owner and head coach. Many of y'all may know Ricky Pearl. He was a NFL football player. I think he's won several Super Bowls. Or if he's not available, Darren Scudder, Noble Academy, which is a private school down the road, also on Horsepen Creek. Their spokesperson will be the head of the school, Amanda Carter. And a bit down the road, but still on Horsepen Creek, is Greensboro Montessori School. And their spokespersons would be the head of the school, Dr. Kevin Navarro, or Nancy Hoffer, who's the associate head of school, if neither of them are available, or if neither of them feel like they're the right person to be the spokesperson, the communication coordinator, Young Do Carey, would take the place. And so the Crisis Community Control Center would primarily be Caldwell Academy, but in the case of a fire, flood, or a gas leak, chances are it's infecting the whole campus, and even if it isn't, chances are it risks affecting the rest of the campus, and either way it's safest to evacuate. And so in the case of these sort of crises, the Crisis Communication Control Center would be Prolific Park. And I've talked with Joe, and they actually have an agreement, Caldwell and Prolific Park do, that students, faculty, and administration, if in a crisis and in need of evacuation, they can basically run next door and gather on the athletic fields behind Prolific Park. They own a lot of land. Anyway, so they would then operate, the crisis team would then operate from Prolific Park. And here's a list of equipment and supplies. These items should be gathered together and readily available in each of the campus's main buildings. If missing any of these items or suggesting new items to be added, consult a member of the crisis team, first responders. So here's just a list of many things you would need: walkie-talkies, chargers, radio, extra batteries, megaphone, Student roster crucial. List of crisis team members, flashlights, school directory, towels, medical emergency kit, surgical masks in case of gas, fire extinguishers, of course, pocket knife, crowbar, water bottles, school directory. I have that twice, etc. And so here's some pre-gathered information. And so this is a pre-written press release or news release. So at approximately whatever time a insert crisis occurred at Caldwell Academy, we have, if there are any injuries, you would report them here. But if there aren't any injuries or fatalities or severe damages, then if there are, then this will be released only after the facts are confirmed and the families or concerned bodies are notified. And Caldwell Academy prides itself in keeping its students and faculty safe and secure, and we are insert a pathetic remark that insert crisis threatened that safety and security, etc. Goes on. This is Caldwell's boilerplate, which can be found on their website. Some key messages. So these are short messages to be used in crisis communication. Many of these may appear as concluding remarks of emails sent to faculty, staff, parents, neighboring organizations, and anyone else affected or concerned. These messages can be used as tweets from members of the crisis team who have Twitter accounts, because Caldwell does not. They have a Facebook, they do not have a Twitter. And these remarks also may be fleshed out if needed for Facebook posts and the like. More to be added as necessary. So Caldwell Academy is deeply sorry for this tragic occurrence. Our thoughts and prayers are with those affected. Caldwell Academy is brokenhearted over those who've suffered from this crisis. Our prayers with you all, our Caldwell family. We have determined the cause of the issue and are working to ensure that this is an isolated incident. We are deeply sorry for those affected. Please reach out if you feel inclined. # Caldwell family. So a few key messages that can be fleshed out or used for a variety of purposes. And so on. In the event of a crisis, or I guess afterwards, Caldwell would, the crisis team would gather and deliberate over a paragraph or two response or informative post concerning the crisis, the state of those affected, and the state of the crisis's rectification. This is similar to the pre-gathered information news release, but should implement more empathetic personal diction. So it should be featured on the homepage of Caldwell's website, linked right here, and updated regularly until the crisis has been completely rectified. And I say just to emphasize, this post should express much more empathy and consideration than the press release, really, or key messages, and should expound in greater detail. And so that would be posted on the homepage of their website and blogs and social media. There's some websites to be monitored so as to keep Caldwell Academy and the crisis team up to date with how the crisis is being responded to, how the news releases and other crisis communications are being received, and to ensure the dissemination of accurate information regarding the crisis. And so Facebook, of course, Twitter, Instagram, which is predominantly for sharing pictures, but this site can spread sensitive photos and be tagged with sensitive hashtags alongside sensitive captions, so best to be aware of what is spreading. WFMY News 2, local news station, Fox 8 News, already mentioned these two. Guilford County Emergency Services, Northwest Observer, they have a mobile site as well, and a Facebook page. And Greensboro, which is local news and records, events, etc. Very up to date. And here's a list of trick questions, potential questions media could ask that could confuse or put out misinformation from those being interviewed. How do you think Caldwell could avoid the crisis? Crisis could have been worse, but the damage was significant, right? Who is the person taking full responsibility? How will they prevent this from happening again? Etc. And a list of prodromes or for floods. Hissing, gurgling, otherwise odd sounds coming from the walls or ceilings. Water seeping out from closed doors. Several days or more of severe rainstorms. Gas leaks. Sounds, odd smells, sudden sensation of faint or lightheadedness, which would really indicate that the gas leak is out. And also severe building damage resulting from trees or debris falling. because of previous storms, could potentially break pipes and cause leaks, as well as other problems. And for fires, there's some personal heaters left on overnight, operating near flammable material. A dry spell, possibly lack of rain in the recent weeks or months. Think of Smokey the Bear. Smell of smoke, of course, crackling sounds, sensation of increasing heat, doorknobs hot to touch, um, etc. And so here are some other related URLs: OSHA, um, Red Cross, FEMA, Guilford County Schools, Guilford County Fire Division. This is sort of to keep people up to date with crises, and sort of a way to find information on maybe how to prevent these crises from occurring in the first place, or maybe just uh, more information on how to handle these sorts of issues. Flood mapping, floodplain management, MyFox 8, tips to prevent gas leaks. And finally, an evaluation form. Questions hereby are meant to assess the efficacy and procedural fluidity of the CMP, and therefore, by completing, to suggest modifications hereof. So was the CMP successful in preparing? Were all the steps listed clearly? Was communication with the local media successful? Were the pre-gathered materials effective, and or should they be updated? What went well, what didn't? Why do you think these things? Was the local community receptive to our response, and were they understanding? If so, why? If not, why? And how could we better present the crisis if it were to recur? And so this will give feedback post hoc crisis and help the crisis team move forward with each update of the plan, um, and really show everybody what went well, what didn't, what needs to be changed, what needs to stay the same. And so this is just a way to evaluate what happened and how best to approach similar crisis in the future. So yeah, that is my CMP.